Welcome everyone to the game between two amazing youngsters of Indian chess. On the left of your screen is Mayank Chakraborty. He's the first GM from Northeast India. And on the right, the boy whom you can hardly see here is Madhvendra Pratap Sharma. He is rated 2363. He's an FM from Madhya Pradesh, 13-year-old boy born in 2013 and very likely to become one of the first GMs of Madhya Pradesh. The game begins. Knight to f3 by Mayank. And pawn to c5. c4 played. The symmetrical English. Knight to f6 by Madhvendra. We are at the Asian Juniors in Mumbai. This is the rapid section. Both of them on 4 out of 5. This is the 6th round. It's a 7-round event. So you can imagine the importance of this game for the medals. h5 played, white castles. Knight to c6. And Mayank plays in the center with d4. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. I already start to like white's chances. And this move h5, which looked quite brave, seems to be just a pawn sticking out and maybe weakening the g5 square. c5 played by Mayank. He's playing against the move d6. Queen takes d4. And now d6 regardless. But Madhvendra, when he does this, cd, I guess the idea is to go knight e8. Because if you take back, you're just left with a weakness. Yes, knight e8 played, attacking the queen. And Mayank goes queen to c5. The knight takes the pawn. And maybe simply bishop f4. He goes bishop g5, putting pressure on e7. Bishop comes out to e6. Rook to d1. I like white's position. Look at these two bishops. Although black's bishops are also very nicely positioned. Queen comes up to d7. And now knight d5. He takes here on e7. A very interesting move. You win a pawn. However, the problem is you give up your bishop pair. And that seems to equalize the position. Takes, and now rook a c8. Putting pressure on c3, and he does it. Because if you take on b7, I have rook b8 and b2 hangs. So a4 played, and suddenly Madhvendra is the one who is completely fine. Rook d1 and rook b4 to put pressure on b2. He first plays b6, saving the pawn. Bishop to d5, offering a trade, takes. And he takes with the rook. Now, Madhvendra can give up his bishop for the knight and recover the pawn, but he doesn't do it instantly. He plays rook b4. He is understanding that in this position, there is a lot of play that he has with this bishop being here. Now, takes, and take on a4. Rook to c6. Now, white has two very active rooks. h4 played with the idea of maybe h3. So the king comes up to g2. And the time on the clock, 5 minutes for Mayank, 3 minutes for Madhvendra. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. You can see the focus there from both the players. They know that the game is far from over. Rook d7. Pressure on f7 and a7. b5 played. And he goes rook to b7, attacking the b5 pawn. I guess a6 makes sense. But rook to a7. And now the a6 pawn is falling. But if you take here, then rook c8 and attack c3. So rook b8 played. King comes to f3. Mayank says, I'm slowly and steadily trying to push you. Rook c4, offering a trade. But this means that I can take and win a pawn. So takes, pawn takes, but look at Madhvendra's time. He's down to 24 seconds. Black wants to come in and attack here. So king e4 to defend king d4. He goes rook b2, attacking f2 pawn. f4 played. But hey, isn't g2 hanging, like g3 hanging with rook g2? But he goes rook d2. Maybe wants to go rook d3. Mayank attacks c4. Now rook g2 played. And he comes back, defends the pawn. This time, Madhvendra is losing a pawn and he's down to 10 seconds. He drops the rook. Rook takes c4. Pawn up for white. Maybe a better move here was rook g1 to stay more active. But okay. f5 played. And now white is actually winning. So Mayank can give a check now. Rook c7. He plays pawn to e4, which is still a great move. Takes. King takes, g4, g5, rook c7, step by step. White is grinding here. White is winning. King e4. And this would mean a lot for Mayank. He would have chances to win the gold here. Rook g2. Attacking the pawn. Check. King comes back to f8. And now simply dropping the king back to f3 to defend g3 and also attack the rook on g2. So he comes back. So rook to d2 played by Madhvendra. And you have king g4. Rook comes to d3. And king h4 played. So idea is g4 again, g4 g5 or g4 king g5. Madhvendra goes rook f3 so that if g4 the f4 pawn is falling. But Mayank can start pushing his c pawn now. Or he can go back rook c4 to defend f4 and still go for g. Yes, he plays rook c4. King comes to g7. We have pawn to g4. And king h6, stopping king g5. Otherwise, you would lose this pawn. Now g5 is a must. He goes for the check. King here. King g4 now. Hitting the rook. Excellent play by Mayank. Keeping a time lead on the clock and playing this rook endgame beautifully. And a check here makes sense. To push the king even further back. King f8 and now f5 to open up the position. And you have the g pawn. You can see Mayank there. He knows he's winning. a5 played. Now f takes g6 is winning. Rook c6 is winning. But f6, which looks like a completely winning move, drops the win now. Unbelievable. a4. Madhvendra is back. Madhvendra is back. Like, you can't have time to do this. Rook g6, a2. Actually, the pawn is queening. Unbelievable. So, Mayank now goes king f4. But already a3. You're threatening a2. c3 pawn is going to fall. Check. King up. Check. Now the times have become even. Mayank thinks and thinks. Ooh, he wanted to play king e8. He goes back king f8. King to e5. Idea king e6. And a mate. a2 pushes further. Madhvendra has to give a check first. It's very important to give this check. Taking here won't work. But he takes here. Rook takes a2. And now white is winning once again. Rook check. And king d6 or e6. The main point being, you can never take this pawn. Because rook g5, there is king e6 with the idea of mate. Rook b5. Check. King up. Check. King down. And so now there's a way to win, but rook d7 is not the way. We'll look at how to win later, but rook d7 looks logical because if you take here, I have king e6 winning. The only way is rook a5, waiting. If you wait, you can draw the game. So the moment he goes king e6, you give a check. He gives a check first, but now king c5 and white is winning, but he goes king e5. An insane rook endgame, I must say. Once again a draw. King c5 was winning. The idea is to smoke the rook out of the 5th rank. And you get rook g7, rook takes g6 for white. Now again, check is a must. Madhvendra down to 7, 6. Check. Mayank goes king e6. Check. Rook d6 forced. And now you have to play rook b8, otherwise you get mated. So Madhvendra, good or bad, must go back. Pawn endgame is lost. If you take here, this is a lost endgame. So he comes back. Good defense. Mayank goes rook d7. Check. Because the threat was rook g7. He comes back. Madhvendra has to go back to b8. He plays rook b8. What a game. What a game. Rook c6 waiting. I guess you can wait as well. Rook a8. He gives a check, which is fine. King d6. And now rook d8 check. King e5. Rook check. King d5. And check. Rook d6. If you take, you are losing. So rook b8, move the rook away, or rook 8. He plays rook 8. 15 seconds for Madhvendra, 40 for Mayank. Mayank sees that there is no real way to make progress because now rook g7, he has to give a check. Madhvendra, he finds the defense. It's amazing that this young boy was able to find the defense in the few seconds he has. Again, go back. Once the rook is not going to g7, you can go passive. f7, the only way to make progress now. Threatening king f6. Rook b8, waiting, king f6, and now the only way to draw. Rook b6, what a move. If you take, it's a stalemate. So rook e6 and rook a6. Beautiful defense here by Madhvendra. Check, king f6 and rook a6. Excellent play, and you can see Mayank there. He is not so happy with what has happened, but there was no way to win this one. He takes on a6 and a stalemate. What an end to this game. Well, from the medal perspective, that wasn't a great result for both. But from chess perspective, it was a fascinating game between these two youngsters. Madhvendra, you will hear a lot about him in the years to come. And of course, Mayank as well. These two will become great players for the country. For now, let's go back to the rook endgame and try to understand the intricacies of it. I'm sure there are many hidden amazing elements in this battle. So we join the game from this moment where white goes f5 and now this move f6, which is a huge mistake. If fg6, white would win this game without too many difficulties. c4, a3, rook a7, and let's say you go rook c3, I go king h5, g7, king g6 coming in and would win the game. But he went f6 and now a4, check, and then king e5, a2, and this was a mistake because if he had gone rook e3 check, that's such a tough move because it seems like, what are you doing? But you're asking the white king to decide. If it goes here, you go and win this pawn, which is very important pawn. On the other hand, if you go king f4, now I can take here. And after rook takes, I have a check, and these side checks here will lead to the victory of the pawn. But, and maybe it's similar to the game there. But he went directly take on c3, and now takes, check, king d6. Of course, you can't take here because after king e6, it's a lost position, is a mate, and the pawn queens. So rook b5, good move. But now white is winning. It's a very tough thing to win in less time, and Mayank dropped the win with rook d7. The way to win here is king e6, threatening a check. Now, if you go passive here, Then rook g7 ends the game. I just win this pawn. So you go for the move check, king e5, check, and now king d6. Again, can't take here because of this check, and king c5, which kind of takes away the fifth rank. And I'm coming here next move. So you don't have too many options. You go rook e6 with the idea of rook e5, and I go king d4, rook e1, and simply rook g7, and the game is over. Check, and I simply move my king away. I mean, I can just come back and win the pawn. So taking away the squares was important here, and it's not an easy, like keeping an eye on king e6 and taking away. So king e6, check. I mean, if you go passive here, then rook here, check, king d5, check here. Sorry, king e6 here, king e5, check, king f4, check, and simply coming back is winning. I'll just come back with my king and take this pawn. So rook d7 was a mistake, and now this check was a mistake. He had to keep rook a5, keep this control. But the moment you give a check, now he blundered with king e5. But if he had gone king c5, it was a draw. It was a win for white, because now rook g7 is unstoppable. Let's say here, simply king b4. And next move, how do you stop this? So king e5, check, check. And finally, this very nice fortress that Madhvendra was able to set up with a rook sacrifice after f7 was very pretty. And the game ended in a draw.